Hello everybody, this is the Retro Bear and welcome back to the second part of this fourth episode of Desert Island Games and my continuation of the chat with Timewarp James, which went up yesterday. If you haven't heard the first part, then please go back and listen to it, as there's some really interesting stuff in there, and of course you'll know exactly where we are in terms of the conversation we got to before that first part finished. Now, I did mention during the first episode that this was probably best part of a 3.5 hour, 4 hour conversation. That conversation has been left in its entirety for you to listen to. James and I carry on the conversation about his gaming journey as well as the other games he was going to be taking with him to the desert island, one that he didn't want to take with him because he absolutely hated it, and one where he'd have a bit more time to sit down and put some time into it amongst eating all the coconuts and pineapples. So without further ado, let's carry on with the second half of this episode, and we pick up where we left off last time. Now, those of you who may have remembered last time, there was a slight technical issue, which is why the episode cut short a bit abruptly, but after a few gremlins were ironed out, I picked it right up again with another question for him. But in the meantime, here's the theme tune. So, did you find, like me, that the software that came out for it wasn't, I don't know, released quickly enough, or there weren't enough big name titles that sort of inspired you to keep with the Cube?
I'm not sure that I would say that they weren't being released quickly enough for me, because I don't ever really remember anticipating any titles coming out. Talked about probably Mario being the sort of flagship game for the system, but I don't remember having any interest in the Mario game that came out.
Mario Sunshine, we mentioned that earlier, didn't we? Yeah.
We did. Did that come out early in its release, or did you have to wait a little while for that one?
Because they released Luigi's Mansion. I think again this was a slight departure, which again I suppose for some people would sort of sum the system up in the fact that perhaps didn't go as well as Nintendo did. What rather than bring out a Mario title, one of the early titles for it, what they decided to do was bring out a game focused entirely on Luigi. And people say
try something a little bit different, perhaps.
Yeah. And people say we want a Mario game. Well, tough, you're in a Luigi game. Well, I don't want a Luigi game. As good as Luigi's Mansion was and is, it just didn't sort of appeal to people. I know, Smash Brothers came out eventually on it, but my experience with it was there was just not enough games that sort of came out and sort of made me think, do you know what? I really, really need to go and get that game. And there just wasn't anything like that for me.
Yeah, it could be so we've talked about the timing being a bit less than optimal for it with such strong. I mean, certainly, I'm sure the PlayStation 2 was out and doing well, wasn't
it? Yes, it was, yeah.
And then, if, as you say, if they're not games out thick and fast, and you can see why a lot of people skipped over the system. And as I was saying, I just didn't have a lot of games for it. I had a very small handful of games. I only really put any time into Zelda. I don't remember having any interest in. It got slung in the loft. I remember my brother bought me F-Zero GX one year, and it was prior to sort of 2015. Before I'd sort of got the retro bug back and the collecting side had really kicked off. He bought that for me as a present one year because he knew I was a big fan of F-Zero X on the 64. See, that being the latest of the F-Zero series, grabbed it for me. But I was a bit underwhelmed with it, to be honest. I thought, well, can I be bothered to dig up the games? Sound a bit ungrateful, but can I be bothered to go up in the loft and dig up the GameCube to play F-Zero GX? Yeah. So he hung. I said to him, "You hold on to it, and we'll play it when I'm around here." Because his consoles. He's about 10 years younger than me, and he got handed down like the Master System and the Super Nintendo and stuff early on. For him, it's not retro for him. He's never fallen out of love with all the consoles he's ever played. So the GameCube would be just as relevant to him 10 years ago when he bought me that game it was when the GameCube had come out. So I just didn't play it, and it got slung in the loft, and that is a point actually I think where I had a bit of a break from console gaming.
Right. Okay. So because I can see what you got afterwards. Yeah, there does appear to be a bit of a gap there.
There's a gap there. I played some PC. I got into a little bit of PC gaming. A lot of things depend on influences, don't they? I started knocking about some people that were more into their PC gaming, and I went to IKEA and I got a big wide desk because I had a big heavy CRT. I was playing a lot of Battlefield 2, keyboard and mouse.
Oh.
I did that for a little while, and I didn't really think. It's a weird thing. I never would have given. I kept my GameCube. I kept my N64. Brother had my SNES and the Master System. I wouldn't have traded those in. I wouldn't have sold them. I wouldn't have given them away. I wanted to keep them. Glad that I did. They got put in cupboards and up in the loft because I had an attachment to them, but I didn't really play them. And at that point, I had a little break in sort of console gaming, and possibly I may have felt at the time that I possibly wouldn't have bought another console that I was kind of done with.
No, I can understand that. I mean, it's you said the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube probably. You had sort of the peak of your excitement, sort of with this system, the Super Nintendo, and the N64, and then PlayStation 2 and GameCube. You can just sort of see hear your enthusiasm waning off there.
Yeah,
so
I think
you would try something else. Yeah.
Perhaps an age. It was possibly an age thing as well. Perhaps early 20s. Actually going off of gaming a little bit. Because when I bought the 360. Which is going to be the next console we talk about.
Yeah,
it was kind of like a roll of the dice.
Why roll of the dice?
Well, in terms of am I going to get my money's worth out of it?
I see.
Am I done with games? Am I, especially having got a little bit into PC, and I've just starting to turn slightly into a bit of a PC snob.
That's an expensive way of doing it, though, isn't it? You think, I'll have a bit of a punt on the 360 and just see if it's worth a go. Do you know
what it was? I think when I think about it, the hassle of setting up a multiplayer game on PC, say take Battlefield, it was a bit of a faff. We used to use a bit of software called Team Talk back then, so that we could all talk. And like I say, I enjoyed it, and I did immerse myself into the PC, but it was a bit of a faff, and I did know a lot of my mates were gaming regularly on the Xbox 360, and they were multiplayer, and they had their headsets on, and they were started to dawn on me that the simplicity of just plug and play into the TV, and that maybe I should, and I say roll the dice because. Yeah, it was a bit of an outlay for the machine as well. I just didn't know that I'd be able to stick with it and get my money's worth. But I'm more than glad I did.
Yeah,
more than glad.
So I mean, was looking at what game we talk about. You mentioned PC gaming there. You mentioned the 360. So the 360 then sort of reignited your passion for console gaming.
It did.
Yeah.
In a big way, I spent. Probably more time on a 360 than any other console. My experience with PC, I've had various PCs over the years because obviously one of my choices we'll get onto was an old PC game, well, an older PC game, shall we say, than what I was playing sort of prior to the 360 when I was playing Battlefield. So, before we talk about 360, did you want me to talk a little bit about the next game?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, go on, because that'll get quite nice, because obviously you've got a 360 game on your list as well, so I'll tie that one in after we talked about the PC game. So your third game that you're going to Desert Island with, and like so many people before you so far. I think Griffo had one on his list. I know I had one on my list when I did it with the TMB guys. I'm pretty sure else have one. Maybe I think Chris may have had one as well, actually.
Yeah, it's come up a few times.
Yeah. I think Steve. When I recorded, we haven't gone out yet at the time of recording this. I think Steve may have also picked a game from this series. So which one is it then, mate?
Yeah, it's one of those where I did consider as you've said, a few people have been talking about it recently. Can I choose something else that gives us something slightly different to talk about? But I wanted to be true to what I would take, what 6 games I would take. And there's no question that I would take Championship Manager 97-98.
97-98 now.
97-98, that particular edition.
Why that particular edition?
I
mean, when everybody knows what Championship Manager is, they know their series, they know exactly what it's all about.
Yeah,
but why that particular one?
We all know it's a football management simulator, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the first one I played, so I didn't play Championship Manager 1 or 2. I don't recall playing any other football manager game prior to that, because I know that they've been out a while at this point, haven't they?
Yeah, you've got, I think, the original. Yeah, you got the original one, 92, 93, 93, 94 expansion disc. I think you had Championship Manager 2. Then I think you may have had 2 and 3, and then maybe this one.
And even on even on some of the consoles, Premier Manager on the Mega Drive. I'm sure was there not a management simulator on the Spectrum as well?
Oh, it was years and years ago when there was the original Football Manager. Yeah.
By no means was it the first manager sim, but it is the first one I played, and the simplicity of, as I recall it, you had 6. The home screen was 6 boxes. It obviously got a lot more complex.
Yeah.
Dealings with the media and unlimited options, really, and it got a bit overwhelming, and I kind of lost a bit of interest in it. But Championship Manager 97-98, simplicity of it. We're all playing it at school, so bit of a scene. So you'd be talking about, have you signed this player? Have you signed that player? Try this formation, and throwing ideas at each other. We had the data editor as well, which was a big thing. So a big thing. So I will hold my hands up. I used to cheat like mad. I'd give my teams like a lot of money. I'd improve player statistics, and we used to make our own teams up as well, and enter them into the Premier League. And you could put yourself up front and make yourself like a red hot striker. And it's just. If you're asking me why this one in the series, I did go on to play like Championship Manager 2. Had it become Football Manager by then, 2002?
2005 was the first Football Manager.
2005. So yeah, I played Championship Manager 2002. That was a good version. 607 when it became Football Manager. I played a few after that, but it was just growing in complexity, and I found it losing its appeal a little bit. So it's the simplicity and just the variety of options. I did play the game fairly as well many times. I played teams, played in the Italian league. I managed teams in England and lower divisions, and did it without cheating. And
it's very satisfying when you can get through it without having to sort of use
without resorting to the cheating.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah. So I've played it. I played that version of the game every which way that you can play the game, and
I think I still got a copy of that somewhere.
Well, I think you can probably play it online now. Can you?
I know. So I've tried playing the. I know there's the 94 you can, but I don't find it a very satisfying experience. So
possibly 97, 98 is possibly a bit too big then, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I found a copy of it.
Yeah, it's not hard to get hold of, and I know just before lockdown, actually, Dainster was putting a few videos out where he was playing it.
That he was playing, was it?
He was playing Championship Manager 97, 98. Yeah, it was before lockdown. It was before his
yes, yeah. I didn't know it was that version.
I think it was, yeah, because I was watching along and remembering some of the players he was talking about. I think he was managing West Brom.
Yes, he wouldn't have been from being around here, so yeah.
He was, yeah. So yeah, I was enjoying watching that, and it's actually given me a bit of a isn't it? We buy old games, and I've decided that that's on my list. I want to buy a big box Championship Manager 97, 98, and I think you have to. I think you can still play it on a Windows 10 PC.
Oh, can you?
I think you can. I think there's a way around it. Possibly a bit of software that emulates DOS. Or I'm not very PC savvy, so
Yeah,
I'm 100% sure. But I think there's a way you can do it.
I think I've still. I know I've got a copy. I may have 2 copies of it, and I'll have a look. I'll have a look see if I can find if I have got 2. And you're very welcome to have the other one if I have forgot. So
Let me throw a name at you, Russ. Actually, because I was
Go on.
thinking. I was thinking this morning over my cereal about this game, and there's a player that I every game I would sign this player. He was my first signing, and I reckon a few lads did the same. And it was Nicholas Alexanderson from Sheffield Wednesday.
I know the guy. Yeah.
Now, the reason that we all signed him all the time was because he was a midfielder. Sorry, he was a defender, midfielder, forward, right, left, centre. He could play anywhere on the pitch.
Yes, he could. Yes.
Yeah. He was cheap. He wasn't the best player in the game by any means, but he was a solid sort of 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, and he didn't kick off when he was bench and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a night when it's just synonymous with that game for me. Think of that game. It's that Alexanderson that I used to sign.
I find it really interesting what you said there about the fact that playing this still when you were at school. So obviously people sort of swapping tips and things like that. I mean, I'd sort of left school by that point. So I think had I been at school when that had been around, I think that's the sort of thing that we'd have been quite happily doing. In fact, it was something at school that actually turned me on to Championship Manager. As I think the first version or the second version came out probably just as we were leaving school, going to college, and somebody mentioned, "Oh, have you tried this?" I said, "No, I've not played that at all." So I've heard it's meant to be really slow and boring. No, try this, and gave me a copy of it. I was like, I was hooked from the very first time I played it. You know,
what a real just lose days and days to that, don't you?
And the thing is, I agree with you. It's much more complicated now, and it's not so much fun. And you just want to be playing the old game, and that's why, like you said there, the nostalgia for the old games. You hark back and sort of go back to something you can get an enjoyment out of. That's why I played Football Manager 2005. So I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick a team from the lower division. I'm going to use this formation, which I always use, and then I'm going to go and try and sign some of the players I usually try and sign.
That's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Let's start again. Yeah. And I can get that player for cheap, and that player for cheap, and that player for cheap, and
you start to know. I mean, this is the benefit of sort of playing with a load of mates at school. Is that they know. You'd get a mate who's like in his 10th season, and he can say, right, this player comes good. This player comes good. A lot of sort of kids at some of the big clubs like they weren't called. I don't think they were called Wonder Kids yet in that edition of the game. I think that's a term that was used in the later Championship Managers.
Yeah, I think we're talking for Championship Manager 0304, Championship Manager 4, something like that. Probably.
That's the first. Is that the first time they used the term Wonder Kid?
I think so, because I think it's I think it's 0304 is loaded with sort of players from Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Sort of buy for like 2,000 quid or something. Within sort of 6 to 12 months, you loan them out to Barcelona. Sort of thing. That's just sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean that was the benefit of having mates that were playing the same game. That particularly if they're 5 or 6 seasons in. But by him, because he turns out he's red hot. So just a real time, if I'm saying, I can't think of a better game, to be honest. Just to be stranded on somewhere with nothing to do, you could just lose yourself in that for sure.
Yeah, you'd be very happy doing that, wouldn't you? Now, you also mentioned 360.
Yes.
Spoke about, and there is another game on your list.
There is.
So do you want to talk us a bit through that one?
Yeah, we're talking about Call of Duty.
We are.
Yeah.
You should know, it's your list.
Well, it is my list. I wrote it, yeah. You've not fed me anything.
No, not
I'll
yet.
give you that. No, the reason I said that is because one of the games on the list that we'll get to, it's also out on the 360. And I didn't want to make it like console specific for reasons we'll go into, but so Call of Duty. First one I played. I've not played Call of Duty 4. which is when it seemed to catch fire.
Yep.
I was not playing games at that point. I was probably either still playing PC or not even doing that. So that went over my head. Didn't play Call of Duty 4. I didn't play Modern Warfare 2. They're the two that seemed to sort of catch fire.
Yep.
All my mates were playing them, but I had no interest. I just had no interest in getting involved. And it's a really strange thing because I would tell you, I've been a gamer all my life and I love computer games. It's one of my favourite hobbies. But I was just in a period where I just had no interest in playing these games. I caught a little bit of World at War, which I think is the Call of Duty before Black Ops 1.
Yes. Right.
Now, the only reason I got that is because I knew that I was going to be picking up Black Ops 1. I'd got the 360 by this point. I was on the headset with my mates and stuff, and we were playing some games. And they were all dead excited for Black Ops 1 to come out. So I knew I was going to be picking it up, but I'd never played a Call of Duty game before. So I picked up a cheap copy of World at War just to give it a try, and by that point it had been hacked to death and it was almost unplayable.
Oh, right.
But it was, it was the precursor into playing Black Ops 1. And when Black Ops 1 finally came out, we were just straight on it, and coincided with the time that I was out of work. So what year was that? Was it 2010 that came out? 2011?
Yeah, probably around about that time.
Around 2010, I believe. Possibly even 2009. But it coincided with a period where I was out of work, and actually a handful of my mates were as well. And we would play Black Ops 1 all day and all night. You could have 6 in the team for the multiplayer and the team deathmatch, and we always had at least 6. So we just hammered that game, didn't
we? Yeah, it's not a game I played a lot of, but obviously I'm not the expert in this household because Mrs. Bear's the expert on Call of Duty.
Is she?
Oh yeah, very much so.
I knew she could fix you a console, but I didn't know if she was also good at Call of Duty.
She used to play Modern Warfare 4 quite a bit, and she used to play online as well. And then she bought Modern Warfare 2 when it came out.
Okay.
And then Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit. She played like a Resistance Fallen Man and Mag as well with PlayStation 3. So Killzone 2 she played an awful lot of as well.
So she likes her first person shooter.
She did. She doesn't do it anymore now. But I think when Black Ops came out, she wasn't particularly interested in it because she didn't get it straight away. With the Modern Warfare 1s, 2 and 3, she sort of got those on first day they came out.
Yeah, sure.
But
which is interesting because Modern Warfare 3 obviously came out after Black Ops 1, but perhaps she was invested in the Modern Warfare series, was she?
She was. I think the people, because she was part of a clan. Colts, I think it was. And she sort of started playing in groups. And a lot of them sort of said they bought Black Ops, but they didn't like it, so she didn't bother going down the Black Ops route. So the only person I know who's played a Black Ops game in this household is me. But I've only played Black Ops 2 on the Wii U.
Okay. Yeah.
Although I do own the Call of Duty games. I've got Call of Duty Black Ops on the Wii of all things.
Right, yeah, wow.
But yeah, I mean, I like the old Call of Duty games, but it's set in the World War II sort of era.
Yeah, no, that is my preferred setting. And obviously Black Ops 1 was starting to become, I think it was set in the Cold War, but some of the weaponry and stuff was starting to become a bit futuristic.
Yeah.
And the Call of Duty series soon far too futuristic and like a Halo game for me, and I lost interest. So I would agree that I prefer the earlier settings of World War II and whatever.
Well, that's what I mean. I prefer the old Medal of Honor games. That's what I grew up. That's my sort of big series when I first started playing PlayStation 1. So Medal of Honor was set during World War II, and I used to love playing those games.
Now I didn't realise that the first Medal of Honor was that a PlayStation 1 exclusive.
Yes, I believe it was.
I didn't know that, but that makes me want to go out and pick that up and give that a play. And well, I've mentioned him a couple of times already. He's starting to become a bit of a name dropper. But Pete Sneztastic, he's been talking about Medal of Honor quite a lot over his last sort of few videos, and yeah, he's twisting my arm. I'm gonna have to dip in and pick up a copy of that.
I mean, it looks like it's aged quite a bit. I mean, it's a 25-year-old game, but it's going to. But even so, it's still a great game. There was a sequel called Underground, which I think came out on the Game Boy Advance, I think, of all things. I know because I think I got a copy of it. And then after that, it sort of went on to PlayStation 2 and Xbox. You got Rising Sun and whatever. It was a great series of games. It really was. But I think the problem was with that was Call of Duty could show it went to a different level.
Yeah.
They'd moved it because basically everything was first-person shooter was World War II. Everybody doing that to death. The Call of Duty moved in a different direction, bringing things forward. And Medal of Honor sort of got stuck in that sort of World War II. And then when they tried to bring it forward, you got I think Medal of Honor Warfighter. I think was probably the last game that came out. It wasn't as polished as modern Call of Duty games, so that basically killed the series off.
Not played it, but yeah. I know that the Call of Duty games get some black from some quarters, but they are regarded as like polished games, aren't they?
They're great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a game that narrowly missed out on this list was Doom 2.
Ah, yeah.
Which is the first, as far as I can recall, it was the first-person shooter game I played.
Mm.
Very wrapped up in that game. Really loved that game, and ever since then, I've been a first-person shooter fan. And Call of Duty Black Ops 1 is the first-person shooter game that I actually played online against other humans. And for me, that was the biggie. That suddenly I'm not playing against AI anymore, and it's completely different when you're playing team deathmatch against other humans.
I think that's what Bess what we enjoyed about it, was the fact that she went online and played it, and then took it to a different level and really sort of enjoyed it.
It is a different level, yeah. I've played Halo online and that at all, but the difficulty level on Call of Duty was manageable for me. I think the last one I really got into was Call of Duty Ghosts, and I nearly got to a 2 KD kill to death ratio. Nearly got to a 2.0 for that, which is not bad going.
No, that's not bad at all.
Your typical player on there, typical decent player that I've come across anyway. Normally he's around a 1, but I kind of camped my way to nearly a 2 KD. I think that was the height of my FPS powers, shall we say. But that's why I enjoyed that series so much, because it was playing basically it's competitive, isn't it, against other people. And when we played, capture the flag, and we'd have six of my mates, and it was like a bit of like a football team. We'd have two different. We'd organise it in the lobby beforehand. Right, who's going to defend the flag? We'd have 2 on the flag. We'd have 2 making a run for the opposition's flag. They put their lightweight class on, which meant they moved quicker, keep firing with stuff. So it was very tactical, and the defenders, if you like, would be mounted up with their bigger rifles. You have a couple of midfielders, like sort of doing a bit of both. It got very tactical, and then, admittedly, I got involved in the sort of pre-lobby trash talking. I'd really hate to hear an account from my neighbours about what it must have sounded like back in the day. Hearing me scream.
You weren't getting into that game at all, were you? No.
Oh my god. It got quite bad. Because I was late 20s, and I thought, after a year of that, I thought, I've really got to pack this in. Why am I getting involved in these arguments with these random American kids and stuff? What are the neighbours thinking here? So, because it's one of those games. I mean, I am a gamer typically who loves their games, but I'm also like a shouter and break control pads. I get fed up with them. And my mum used to say to me, like, "Don't play it then if it's making you wound up."
Yeah.
How do you explain that? You know, I get all this joy from them, but at the same time, like they piss me right off.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, and I can be sat up here with the door open. Something will happen, and you can't help it. You'll just, start swearing at a very loud
I think it just
volume.
it takes you on a ride for better or worse, doesn't it? Like
Yes,
a
it
good
does.
game.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
does.
not all. Yeah, it can be frustrating.
I think that's part of it. You don't want to be too straightforward.
No,
Too easy, wouldn't it? Really.
that's it. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. But I think Call of Duty was. I think that was kind of, in a way, it was like the peak of gaming in that sense, because nothing would get me more pissed off than what I felt was an unjust death, because perhaps I'd lagged, or perhaps they'd done something. But then when we beat the team, it was just brilliant and finished with more kills than deaths. It was just, it was.
So, moving on from Call of Duty, then, going back to your gaming history. Before I bring in sort of where you are in terms of your current consoles, we have gone back and started collecting again in 2015. Some of the classic consoles from before.
Yeah.
So I've got you gave me a list of 5 here, which is the NES.
Yep.
The Mega Drive.
Yep, that's right.
Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, and the Xbox. So of those 5 there, just give us a brief overview of what was the reasoning behind you went back and picked those up.
So the NES, I think initially what I did was I bought a SNES back because my SNES was passed on many years. So the first thing was buying a SNES back.
Yeah.
Then I bought the NES, dipped into that, never owned a NES. So, a few games that I'd never played. To be fair, I'd only played maybe 2 or 3 games on my friend's NES.
Yeah.
So it's a brand new system. It's basically games that I've not tapped into at all. But I think what tipped it for me to, right, I'm going to go and buy a NES was I saw Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Someone playing that on YouTube, and I just thought it looked absolutely brilliant. And I thought that was my cup of tea. So yeah, I really that is what made me buy the console, so I could play that one game.
Okay. Are you a fan of the console?
It's a funny one, isn't it? I agree with you. I've heard you say in the past that I think actually you said that the end. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misquoting you, but I think you said that the NES leaves you cold. How do you plead?
Guilty. It still doesn't. Looking at it now, it's a warm day and it still leaves me cold. It leaves me so cold, I'm thinking about sticking it on my brow later to cool down a bit.
So my system I think is the better console. I think it's the largely better games on there. But that's just my opinion. So what do I think of the NES now? I don't know really. There's a collectability about the cartridge that I like. And they've got this, the label spines, which they didn't put on any of the other.
Yeah, you'd have thought that would be the one thing they would have kept on there all the way through, wouldn't you? Really?
I certainly wish they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find a collectability about them. If I was going to go for a full set, and I know that a lot of the NES games now are getting very, very. I just feel like that would be one that I'd consider because there's less things that can go wrong with a NES cart. All you've really got to worry about. I mean, they don't tend to discolour as noticeably, I find, as say the Super Nintendo carts. And all you've really got to worry about is the label. If you're not going box complete, if you're going cart only, so I wouldn't mind doing the CEX, sort of rolling the CEX dice, because I've only got to worry about whether the label turns up in good nick.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've done that once before, and I got quite lucky. I think, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got about 10 carts, I think, altogether. I think there's only one where I've got a slight issue with the label at the top, which came out of cash converter.
Okay.
I sort of knew it was like that anyway.
Yeah, obviously you'd have picked up.
Got the old Pritt stick on it, and it seems all right. But I mean, apart from those labels being in good nick, you're absolutely right what you're saying.
I think
They are durable.
yeah, they are. So there's a collectability about it that I like. There are some good games. I think Mike Tyson's Punch Out is definitely my cup of tea.
Okay, yes. Yeah,
There are others as well that I enjoy throwing on, but it's I can't play it for too long. It's not one that I can spend a lot of time with.
So I bought a Retron at the start of the year, which will enable me to play American cartridges and also would tentatively upscale the NES carts as well. But the problem with the Retron is they don't half grip the cartridges.
Yeah, I was gonna ask actually because I have heard that you feed a cartridge in and it feels like you're having to force it in.
It's getting them out that's a problem. I'm
Okay.
not so much problem getting them in. It's grabbing hold of them and pulling them out afterwards.
Yeah, and we don't want that, do we? When we're spending money on these cartridges, we don't want to scuff them up, just removing them from the
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's just, it is what it is. I think if I'd had it back in the day, I'd have had a bit more. But I do intend to have a dip into some of the games. I've built up a little library now, and funnily enough, I am finding like a collecting habit that I've got is that I'm tending to buy more like the opposite system I had for a generation. So I had Master System, but my NES collection is now bigger than that.
Oh, right.
I had N64, but now my PlayStation 1 collection is bigger. And my Mega Drive collection is bigger than my Super Nintendo. And maybe it's because I want to sample more games that I didn't play.
Yeah.
That tends to be a bit of a collecting habit of mine at the moment.
Which leaves on the Mega Drive, so you've now got more Mega Drive games than Super Nintendo.
I don't feel like I was ever a stranger to the Mega Drive because I did play equivalent games on like the Master System, and I'm sure I mate lent me a Mega Drive for a little while and had that for a couple of months and played it, but I've just never owned one. So yeah, I picked one up in the night.
You pick up the original one?
I did, yeah. So the one I borrowed off a friend was a Mark II, but when I grabbed one a few years ago, I made sure to grab a Mark I. And you can get the Mega Drive prices haven't gone through the roof yet. You can get a decent boxed Mark I Mega Drive, box in good shape. You can get one for a reasonable price now. Maybe, I don't know, £75, £80.
Yeah.
Which isn't too bad relative to other consoles of the time.
No, I saw yesterday a Mark II Mega Drive boxed for £50.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. I think that's around what I paid for mine with a few games as well. The box is in sort of reasonable shape. Not a minter by any stretch. Bad, and when I paid £50, several games which I traded in, a bit of money back straight away. So yeah, you can. It's still a good time. If I saw a really nice Altered Beast edition boxed mint console, I'd have a real hard time letting that go. That's why I just don't open eBay these days, Russ.
Yeah,
I try and stay off of it.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to keep at it. So yeah,
but I've got that modded. The Mega Drive got that region modded. Nice little switches from Applin before that shut. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Then you got the Dreamcast.
Yeah, Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Grabbed that. I've tested it. I've tested a few games that I bought, but that is the extent of it. Because the issue I've got is I can only have one. I've only got space to have one, other than current gen consoles, which I've got set up on under the flat screen. I've only got room for one retro console at a time, so it's faff. Just not got around to putting any time into the Dreamcast yet. Also a console that I didn't play a lot back in the day either. I had one mate that had one and just didn't really get a lot of use.
Well, it's like me. I mean, I didn't play on one at all when I first had one. I didn't have one at all back in the day. Sorry, get it right. Didn't have one at all when it first came out. It's always interesting to get one because I was a big Sega fan. And then when I got one, I don't know. It's a bit underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
It's a noisy old thing as well, which also drives me mad.
It's quite kick out a bit noise, is it?
Oh, it's the fan on it. I think you turn it on, you think there's something wrong with it, but there isn't. It's just that's the noise it makes.
I think the appeal for me to pick it up was, well, I didn't have one, and I want to experience it. It's the arcade feel of a lot of the games. So,
yes, a lot of people who like the Dreamcast seem to think that is one of the big sort of selling points behind it. It was a very sort of arcade-centric console.
Yeah, I think that's a big appeal of it. And for someone like me, as I said earlier, that I didn't really play a lot of actual arcade machines. They've just becoming a bit thin on the ground. Played the Turtles one, as I say, when I used to go swimming, but I don't remember playing another one. So I've missed out on that sort of arcade experience, and perhaps I can get that through a few Dreamcast games.
Well, you should. I mean, there are a number of arcade machines from the time that were converted to it, and
yeah, I think Crazy Taxi is supposed to be a very good conversion, isn't it?
Crazy Taxi is the one that gets mentioned a lot. I mean, my knowledge of the arcades around that time was pretty much limited. I mean, my era was sort of before then, so my era was sort of the late '80s in the arcade. To me, that really wasn't a sort of a selling point of the Dreamcast. It was just the fact it was just another console that I'd sort of wanted at the time, but never actually gone down the route of getting.
I think something else that put me off was I was still in a bit of a mindset that cartridges were the way to go, being N64 rather than the PlayStation 1, because I had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about loading times with discs. So perhaps I was still at a point where I was a little bit dubious about disc-based games, and I thought it was still all about, cartridges are better.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing is I didn't have the Saturn, so I'd
Well, you didn't miss anything, you're right.
Well, yeah, I played the Saturn once around someone's house and played a racing game, which I think was Sega Rally. I think that's quite a fondly thought of game, Sega Rally. But all I can remember from having a few goes at it was just this pop-up, this horrendous pop-up, and because that's my own experience of the system, never played one again. And
when you say pop-up.
Yeah, graphical pop-up. So all of a sudden, trees are just boom, 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 boom.
So the draw distance, isn't it? Is that what they call it?
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah, it's sort of like adding the stuff, clipping as it goes along.
Yes.
Yeah.
I found that a bit like, "Cool, this is a bit. I'd expect better."
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on that point. I probably would have expected better at the same time as well.
But I think it's unfair as well, though, Russ, because if I'd have played a different game, perhaps, then I might have had a better view of because I'm not the biggest racing fan anyway, unless it's a bit of an arcadey or futuristic racer. So that's possibly not fair. If I played a different Saturn game, maybe I'd have got interested and got into the system, and subsequently been more receptive to the Dreamcast. But Sega wasn't on my radar at that point.
Yeah. Well, the version of Daytona is even worse on Saturn, but there is a championship edition which is better.
Oh, okay. Is that on the Dreamcast or the
that's
Saturn?
a Saturn. But if you move to the Dreamcast, the version on it's a Sega Rally 2, I think it is much better. Better experience, so
perhaps that's the one to dip into then. Yeah.
PlayStation 1 was another one that you picked up as well.
Yeah, so I finally got that PlayStation 1. As I say, 64 guy. But I think I remember a point in time. Now here's another slightly odd story. In DT Design Technology, year 11, our project was to design something and make it out of wood or whatever.
Yeah. And
my plan was to make like a little seat drawer and a bit of acrylic casing to house a PlayStation.
Oh, okay.
Why I chose why a PlayStation? I had an N64. I didn't own a PlayStation. So what was it? How strange is that? I mean, I didn't end up doing that because back to my older cousin again. He was a year older than me, and he was like, "Don't do that." He was like, "Do a bird table. It's a lot easier to do. You'll get a better grade, and you can have all my paperwork for it as well, like all the designs." So I scrapped that idea, but. What a strange sort of thought process to.
I have no idea where you're going with that one.
I think I wanted one. I think that's the thing, Russ. I think I wanted a PlayStation 1 in addition to my N64. Maybe there was a bit of a seed planted because more people had a PlayStation 1 and hearing all these stories about all these great games. And I did play one as well. Like a lot of mates had them, so I'd play them around their houses, and I did like it. And I think I wanted one. That influenced this. It does seem like odd in hindsight. Like why not choose to do that for the Nintendo 64? I don't know.
Oh well, yeah. is it Machine you like?
It is. I really do.
Did you go for the original one as well? By the way,
no, I didn't. I would like the original one, but I saw a very, very good deal on eBay for the PSONE.
the paracetamol version.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh dear, James.
Yeah. It was absolutely. It looked like it didn't come boxed or anything, but it looks to me like it's barely ever been played. And when you see the selection of games that came with it, I think I've got Scrabble, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and The Weakest Link. So I suspect it was not a gamer as such.
Yeah,
it was selling me. It was like a very casual.
It sounds like a very disappointing birthday or Christmas.
Yeah, doesn't it just? Yeah, it's either like a really disappointing present, or perhaps like I'm thinking. My impression was that I was buying off of like an older person who thought they'd have a little dabble, picked up games like Scrabble and The Weakest Link, and then
Realised I made a terrible mistake.
Yeah, and I moved it on. I've got that little bundle, and it was really good price. But I would like to get an original PlayStation 1 for sure.
But the thing was, the original PlayStation 1, again, sort of going back about 10 years, people were giving them away. Practically, you go to a car boot sale, and there'd be, piles of the stuff.
Big time. I really do envy people that had the savvy or were into the hobby back, 15 years ago. Can you imagine going to car boots and picking up all this stuff? As you say, people just giving it away. You quids here, quids there, taking all this great stuff home. Well, I love hearing the stories from people on the tubes about that sort of era when they were going to car boots and the sort of stuff they were bringing home for peanuts.
Yeah, well, it's like me. I've picked up at car boot sales 2 Saturns for £1 each. Now, bear in mind, no box or anything, no leads or anything. But that's what they were, and both of them worked.
A working Saturn for £1.
So I'd already got one, so I thought, well, if I take one home with me for £1, it's going to make absolutely no difference whether it work or it don't work.
No, it's definitely a gamble that you're happy to take, isn't it, for £1?
Now, if somebody said £15 nowadays, I'll be sitting there thinking, punt the take for £15.
What do you mean at a car boot?
If you saw the same sort of thing. So you say, well, I know what it's worth, but I ain't got the lead of the box for it or the controller, so I don't know if it works or not, but I'm asking £15 for it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
That I expect what is the modern paradigm shift compared to what it was back then.
I think I would probably. It depends on how shifty I thought that the seller was. When I look them in the eye and say, "Does it work, mate?" and see what if they're honest and say, "I don't know, it's untested," and I don't. Yeah, I'd pay 15. I'd probably take a gamble at £15, but I know what you're saying. There's a line, isn't there? And you're not bringing it back if it doesn't work. That's the problem.
You can't buy anything in these days for £1, but if there was something that was £15, it's a bit more like this or put that in or buy that instead or whatever. So I don't know, it's one of them, isn't it?
That's the way it goes now. Just the prices are. I wouldn't moan. I'm not going to moan about it because I'm obviously, as someone that buys this stuff, I'm contributing to the prices going the direction they are going. But sometimes, I do get that that buyer's remorse when I spend a lot of money on a game or whatever, and this is just madness.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all do.
Yes, I think you're right with that, and I sort of base my entire time and collection around doing that sort of thing. Do I really want to spend more than £1 on this? But it goes back to what we were saying quite some time ago about the fact that if you are more a collector than a gamer, then you don't want to spend 15, 20 quid and have something sat on the shelf. Well, looks rather nice, but you wouldn't, unless you were going to play it. Wouldn't spend 15, 20 quid. I'd much rather spend 15, 20 quid on like a handful of games, and then they can all sit on the shelf, and I don't feel so bad about it.
I suppose it depends on what your collection sort of goals are. If it's a full set of something you're going for, or just bigger collections, then perhaps you can't afford to be quite so choosy about certain things. And whereas my collection's a bit smaller, and sometimes I feel a bit more justified in spending perhaps a little bit over the top because I'm getting it in the edition I want it.
We're all different at the end of the day, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I thought lastly, you bought an Xbox as well, which I'm very pleased to say because it's one of my favourite consoles.
Oh, good. That was given to me.
Given to you?
It was given to me, the Xbox original. Now I've got it still. Just looking at it now, it's up on the shelf. I assume it works, but I've never tested it, never played it. What I'd quite like to do is to mod it. And it's obviously there's nothing clever or cutting edge about modding an Xbox, but I've never done so. It's part of the retro experience, isn't it? Even though it's really old school now to mod an Xbox.
Yeah,
I'd like a go at it
because you'll need to be pretty good with the old soldering iron.
Well, yeah, I've got all that. I've started picking up a few bits like that, so that I can. It's one, like we were saying about things to do during lockdown. That was one of the things I wanted to do, was to mod the Xbox.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I've got all the gear, and I think, plenty of lads in the community know
what you're doing and what needs to be sorted out.
Sure, there's someone I can, give them a shout and see what's what.
Because I've got two of them, and one is the one I had originally. It's the only one I got of my original sort of gaming time, and that was modded. I tend to use that one as a backup now, because I bought another one, again, untested, no leads, for £3.
Good.
About 3 years ago. So I nearly walked away from.
All right. What did you just assume that £3 it can't possibly work?
three quid's too much. No, no. It was a fact that it was too heavy. Because the original Xbox, it weighs a bloody ton.
It does weigh a ton, yeah. It's a bag of cement, isn't it?
And I thought, and at the time, it was just like, well, what would I do with it? But I like to have a backup to every console that I've got. So I know that if one breaks, I've got another one in reserve. There's very few consoles that I have that I don't have a backup for.
Yeah, that's good.
PlayStation's, not even, I've been PlayStation 3. Only the Switch, the 360. I think they may be the only two. Switch, the 360, and the SNES. I don't have a backup for. Everything else I own, I have backups for. And I thought, well, started walking in the shop, I turned down £3, and I thought, you know what? Oh, I'll go and get it for £3. And there's nothing wrong with it, apart from the fact it's got a slightly sticky tray. But there's a little release button underneath anyway, which solves that problem. Everything else about it works absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm sure you could get that running a bit smoother.
If I wanted to.
If you want, get Mrs. Bear to do it.
I can do it. I just tap the front of it. Just give it a little tap with my finger. And
do it the old school way.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I thought about backing up a lot of consoles myself, because I was lucky enough that I've still got like original N64, for instance. I've had that since the late 90s. It does cross my mind. Perhaps I should stop using that one and get another one, because if that one packed in and died, it'd be a bit of a shame, because I've had it all this time.
Yeah, this is again is another one of these sort of subjects where you sort of think the whole purpose of sort of, do you want to use the original hardware and the original games in case they stop working?
Yeah.
So would you rather play with enough emulation or a safer way of doing it, or whatever? So again, it's another one of our much vaunted rabbit holes. This one.
You've also got to consider, if I never fire it up, if I never fire it up, and it goes another 10 years without being switched on, then presumably that's not good for the circuit boards and whatever either. So,
well, exactly. Having rescued a Spectrum, which was probably in someone's loft for a good part of 25 years, and then when I turned that on, there was a failure on it straight away. Then yes, absolutely, 100%. But then again, there was another one that we'd done recently with a Commodore 64, which didn't work the first time. So I took it apart, nothing wrong with it, put it back together again, turned it the second time, absolutely worked fine.
Well,
so it's one of those. You're never quite sure what you're going to get. But the telltale signs will be there with the obvious faults on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. Obviously, with the newer stuff, there are telltale signs, aren't there? Something like talked about the 360. Yeah, I've had 360s that have had the red ring of death, as it was called. And PlayStation 2s where the laser just went.
Yeah.
And you know straight away what's up. But yeah, if I suppose like these old machines must get to a point where they just fail, and you're not going to be able to put your finger on, well, this just needs changing, or it just gets to that age. I guess it's going to happen at some point with a lot of them.
That's right, and with I've had the only ones that have sort of failed on me, PlayStation 2, and what's the other one that failed? PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
That repaired twice. I think we repaired that one, and then the third time it was It's completely dead now.
Yeah,
Well,
I've heard of other people who've had the same issue with the PS3. Yeah,
but generally speaking, they are pretty good. But you have to look after them.
definitely. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about where you are in terms of your modern gaming now.
Yeah. So Xbox One is my main system. Most of my mates' 360 days are still on Xbox One, and they still regularly game. When I turn my Xbox on, I can see them all online playing this, that, and the other. Yep. I don't play much anymore. But during lockdown, I went back and played quite a few games on the system.
Yeah,
some games I've already completed, and a couple of new ones that come out. I've sort of played through and finished those. So I've really hammered the Xbox One during lockdown. It's still what I would consider my main system. If a game comes out, I'm likely to get it on that system. I also do have the PS4, which I bought for exclusives, and I've got a Switch. Which was a gift.
I had a gift of a Switch as well.
Yeah, so I was happy to get it because I find the Switch quite charming.
I agree. It's a it's a cute little thing, isn't
it? It is, and a bit unlike yourself, I never had a Wii.
I've never been called cute. No, sorry.
Well, you are the retro bear, to be fair.
That's it.
No, I never had the Nintendo Wii. Obviously, you've got a big collection.
I think I have somewhere.
You do,
yeah.
You do get a lot of stick for that Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
You do get a bit of stick for that, don't you? It does make me laugh.
Sometimes you have to follow your instinct, and that was an instinct for me. So
well, you should see if I was a bit more on the ball, because I remember the Christmas that the Nintendo Wii came out. I think that Christmas I realised how massive it was going to be, because lots of people I worked with at the time were desperately trying to get hold of one for their kids. And people I knew who weren't gamers as such were all buying the Nintendo Wii. It was mainly for Wii Sports and Wii Bowling, retrospect, but realised that they'd sort of got beyond the gaming market, hadn't they? With the that was definitely my perception of it, that they'd reached beyond your typical gaming market.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it appealed to everybody.
But unfortunately, it didn't appeal to me. I don't know why, but it didn't appeal to me. I thought I was done with Nintendo with the GameCube.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same with the Wii U.
Well,
interested in it, to be honest.
Yeah, the Wii U gets a lot of stick, and I can see why it does. But having got one last year, playing quite a bit on it, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's good.
But at the same, I like the Switch. It's a bit quirky, and it's colourful, and I think they've nailed that pretty much spot on. I really do. And I also got the feeling after the Wii U, I know I appreciate that the handhelds, the DS family was pretty successful. I got a feeling after the Wii U, Nintendo needed to pull out all the stops with the Switch.
I think they did. And I used to wind my brother up quite a lot, telling him how crap the Wii was and how crap the Wii U was. And the wind-up continued when he got a Switch before I got one, and I'd wind him up and say, the Switch is what the Wii U should have been. It's a generation out, not next gen and all that. And, playing myself off as a bit of an Xbox fanboy, just to wind him up because he's just so into his Nintendo. But it did occur to me, Wii U was perhaps a little bit of a misstep. It should have been something closer to the Switch.
Yeah.
But maybe that's a bit harsh. Maybe the technology wasn't quite sort of ready at that time. I don't really know. But it's not something that as I say, I thought I was done with the GameCube. I didn't really put a lot of time into that even. So for me, yeah, I didn't see myself getting a Switch, but I was gifted one, and I was happy to be gifted one because I wanted to play Breath of the Wild, and that is what I'm doing now. So I've been playing that for probably 2 months now, and I think I'm about 100 hours in.
100 hours, good grief.
I've just passed the 100-hour mark, and I can tell that I've probably got at least another 50 hours to go to finish it. It's a big game.
It is, and I just, although I played it for a time less, probably about 50 times less than you played it for. It's just a game I just won't have the time to put the effort into it to spend in doing that. And I know, something you don't have to go to put that time into a game, but those days now are way behind me, I'm afraid.
I think with a game like that, I think you do. I think you're only going to get into that game if you immerse yourself into it, because I played it for around 10 hours when I was still playing other bits and pieces, and it wasn't really doing it for me, and I put it down and I didn't go back to it for a couple of months, and I thought, right, I'm gonna go back to it. Play anything else? I feel like I have to be dedicated to it, so. Yeah, finished everything else I was playing and then jumped back onto Zelda. And once I got past maybe the 10-hour mark, 10 or 12 hours, it clicked. And now I'm 100 hours in, and I'm sitting there playing this game. I don't see how games can get better than this. Like, it's got me. It's one of those experiences, where you play a game, Russ, and you think this is one of the best games I've ever played. Blah blah blah. Think, or maybe it is. I had this with another game we're going to talk about from my list. I thought games don't get better. There's nowhere to go after this. This game is like the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And I've got that feeling with Zelda at the moment. And I'm sure, once I've finished it and put it down, I'll get into something else. Get on. Well, at the moment, it just feels like gaming is, you've got nowhere else to go.
And that's exactly the same thing I felt when I first played Hannah Montana Spotlight World Tour. Arguably the pinnacle of gaming. You just get that. Now, I joke.
Just the best.
I know what you mean. You get into a certain point and you think,
I think you're just so immersed into a game.
Yeah,
you're just loving it, and you just think, well, it don't get any better than this. Like it's only going to go downhill from here.
Yeah.
To overplay.
I did find out that there was one game which really did sort of grab me like that, and sort of rather surprised. Star Wars: Phantom Menace.
Oh, okay.
On the PlayStation 1, because I rented it out when you can rent. I think I've told this story briefly before, but I'll just be quick about it. I got it home from the rental shop, played it all night the first night. I thought, this is brilliant. This is a great game. I can't wait to come back. And went to work, and I couldn't think about anything else except getting home and playing that game. I got home within half an hour of playing that game. I thought, it's a bit crap.
Oh, you just turned on it?
I just turned on it like that. I couldn't wait to get home and play it. I was thinking, shall I phone in sick and just carry on playing this game? I thought, I'll better go to work. I'll be working, Phantom Menace was 1997, 99, wasn't it? So, 1999. So, probably about 24, 25 at the time. I thought, shall I phone in sick and play the game all day? Can't do that. So
I've got to ask, what on earth happened for it to go from this is the best game I've ever played to? No,
I think what it was is I got to a certain point in the game and I got stuck or I got lost and I kept dying. And I thought, you know what, I can't stand this anymore.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And that was it.
It just soured you on the game.
Yeah, and he went back to the rental shop the next day. Yeah.
Oh wow.
But it has to be 24 hours previous. I was like, this is the greatest game ever.
Yeah,
and it's got the video with the fight at the end of it with the soundtrack to it and great bits in the film, and I can play it on my PlayStation 1. This is brilliant. And then 24 hours later, it's like,
wash your hands of that one.
Sitting there waiting for Hannah Montana Spotlight World Tour to be invented.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we'll save that for another podcast.
We can do.
Hannah Montana. Yeah, I've got it about this.
Right, so that's where we are now. Let's talk about the other games on your list. We've still got 4 games to get through. Let's talk, because obviously we talked a lot about the Xbox One, and I know these 2 games are from the Xbox One, which ties in again quite nicely with that.
Yes,
these are 2 games that on your list of the 6 that you want to take with you. We've already had Mario World on the SNES, we've had NBA Jam on the SNES, Championship Manager 97-98 on the PC, Call of Duty Black Ops on the 360. So your 5th choice is...
My 5th choice is the original Resident Evil.
Original one.
And I've said the Xbox One because, as far as I'm aware, that is probably the best version of the game you're going to play. I think if you play on an Xbox One X. Yeah, so the original Resident Evil. It was a tough one between Resi 1 and 2. what I did envision, what I imagined when I gave you this list was I was going to cheat a little bit actually, and I was going to suddenly reveal to you that when I say Resident Evil, I mean a blanket term for the whole series, and then pull a bit of a fast one.
Even the crap one that everybody hates.
Well, yeah, with an exception or two, yeah. But I was going to pull a fast one on you, Russ, and say, yeah, I meant every Resident Evil game because they're so hard to choose between. But no, I'm gonna stick with the first one.
No, that's good.
In the house, it's the first one I played. So when I've told you about mates at school, they're coming in, they're talking about their PlayStation 1 games. One of the big ones was Resident Evil. And I'd be like, tell me about it, and they describing the game and setting like the house and what's going on and how you've got to manage your items and that. Just sounded brilliant. And I probably did have a short go or two round a mate's house, but it's not like I could sit there for 10 hours and play through the game. So I never really played it originally.
I had the one, the first one, the PlayStation 1. Yeah, it was good.
I wish I'd have been able to play it back in that day and talk about it with my mates. But no, the first time I got to play it properly actually was on the GameCube. So there's another list for the tiny GameCube collection, as we talked about earlier. I picked it up for the Cube, and obviously it was remastered, wasn't it, with the better visuals, and I think they redid the speech, got rid of some of them cheesy. The cheesy video.
That's what makes the games to start with, that isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm a bit sorry that I missed out on that, but of course, I can go back and play that. But yeah, so the first time I got to play it was on the Cube, and then I've played it on the 360. And then I've played it on the Xbox One as well. I've played through it quite a few times, probably 5 or 6 times. Just a cracking game, really. Yeah, as I say, it's difficult between that, and you tend to find most people. I find that Resident Evil 2 seems to be the most popular one in the series. That's the one that seems to get mentioned time and time again. And yeah,
because that's been recently remastered, hasn't it?
It has, and I think I was having a bit of a laugh with Big Game Al, who swears by the early Resident Evils and making out, he doesn't want to touch the new ones. But I said to him, you're missing out. They're brilliant. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think we'll get onto that, but
yeah,
I think they're. Yeah, I've chosen the original Resident Evil. That's got to be my favourite. I love the pre-rendered. It's the way it plays.
Yeah, I mean, he said great series of games, reasonably consistent with obviously a few exceptions.
Yeah, it is. I played 5 and 6 as I played them cooperatively with mates, and they're just shooters. They're solid first-person shooters, essentially. Well, perhaps not first-person. I think they're over the shoulder, aren't they? But they're just solid shooting games. But they're not Resident Evil for me. Not really Resident Evil for most people. And
that's the key thing, isn't it? It's all very well playing. It's like you talked earlier about the football manager, the championship manager games. They're still the same game, but they're not. They're not the same game because you're doing all the other bits and pieces.
That's right. Yeah,
which
it's kind of veered off course a little bit.
Yeah. Does it need to sort of go that way or not? No, it doesn't. And as you said, turning Resident Evil into just a basic, another shooter.
Yeah, just another shooter, really. Good as it is, and I rate them solid games. But when you stick a Resident Evil game, you want a bit more. And I was really happy when I played 7 because it felt like a massive return to form. New engine.
Yeah.
The first 2 or 3 hours of that game. Unlike anything else I've ever played, there was just a sense of helplessness, and I don't really scare easily. But I was sitting there and I was a bag of nerves playing that for the first 2 or 3 hours. Until I don't know if you've played it, Russ. Have you? Evil 7?
Yeah, I haven't got the right colour trousers to play it, mate. I'm afraid. So.
Okay. I'd urge you to play it. Just you need that experience, that first couple of hours in the game in your life, until you start to get to grips with it. You feel utterly just helpless.
What gets me is I'm not a big fan of the horror genre anyway, at all. Full stop. It's film, TV, games.
Not really your cup of tea.
I'll play certain games, but there are certain games which I'm just going to sort of steer clear of. And the fact when people who are sort of hardened veterans on these sort of turn around and say to me, "Oh yeah, that's a really scary game," I'm thinking, well, if you're finding it scary, how am I going to find it? I like my sleep. I don't want to sort of spend most of my nights sat up butchering across and garlic and things like that. So yeah, I may do it at some point.
So what would you make of the first two Resident Evil games then? If you don't like horror, because I find they're a little bit more, fair to say, they're a little bit more toned down, a bit more comic booky sort of horror.
Yeah, I think I prefer that sort of style. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some jump moments in the first game. I remember sort of jumping at least twice at my skin. But that was part of the fun of it. So I prefer that sort of style. It's when it gets a bit more realistic. I'm not so keen on it. I mean, I've got loads of zombie games. I mean, and sort of horror games knocking around. I've got The Evil Within, which I was widely regarded that's the sort of game you play with all the lights turned on, and lots of people around you just in case. I like the House of Dead games, but that's more cartoony, opposed to sort of being realistic. So
bit of action as well, aren't they? House of Dead is a bit of a
But I'm not going to run out and buy sort of the Saw game because I wouldn't watch that film anyway. So I've got absolutely no intention of going and buying a game based on a film I'm not going to watch.
I'm not. Did they get good reviews? The Saw games?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm the same as you. I've not dipped into them. I've not been curious about them. I don't know if it's the movie tie-in, the prejudice against that, but I've just never.
There's one I picked up recently recently, sort of in the last sort of 6 months or so on the 360 as well, which is a Kinect game, which is Rise of Nightmares.
Oh right, not heard of that one.
And again, that's sort of like a zombie thing, but obviously with the sort of Kinect thrown into it as well. So that's a bit more sort of realistic, but it's sort of somewhere between the two. And I was like, that's going to scare the pants off me as well. So
I mean, in terms of scares, so did you, other than the jumps, did you find the early Resident, other than jumps, what did you think of like the settings?
Oh, I like the settings. I thought that they were solid games, and that it wasn't just all about the jumps and the scares. There was
a bit of
a story to it. And
there was, and so I've chosen the first one because I really like the house. Spooky old house, the music, the suspense. To suspense well, doesn't it?
I'm pretty sure that was the game where I first started. I was watching the introduction and I was absolutely amazed by it. And then I sort of realised about 2 or 3 minutes after the game had actually started, I was meant to be playing the game.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I sort of thought, hang on a second, what's going on here? So I thought that
it could be the first experience of that criticism that, computer games are becoming like movies.
Yeah.
And we're too passive, so possibly your first experience of that.
Exactly, but when you sort of look back at that game and you go, what, you thought that was actually still going on? I did actually, yeah.
And that would have been the PlayStation 1 version.
Would have been the PlayStation 1 version,
the video, the video scenes, yeah.
Yeah, seeing as we're talking about, one other game on your list, which is the game that we ask you to pick where you think you need to spend a bit more time with, a bit unloved, or you never sort of got round to, sort of ties in quite nicely with that one.
Yes,
because it's another game in that series, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So my choice for my underplayed game is Resident Evil 4.
Now, which one are we talking here? Or are we just talking Resident Evil 4 in general?
Do you mean what system?
System, yeah.
I think I've I've got it on the Xbox One again.
Just been remade, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
I'd like to grab it for the Cube because I think it was a Cube exclusive when it first came out. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it came. Yeah, it did end up on the PlayStation 2 though.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I don't.
And also the Wii as well.
Perhaps it wasn't an exclusive. Maybe it was at the time, but then it was ported across. So I'd love to grab it for the Cube, just for the collector in me. But no, when I play it, I'll play it on the. It's my main system. I'm going to play it on the Xbox One. And I have dipped into it. I've attempted to play it a couple of times, and I'm struggling with the control system. I think that's the main. I think that's my main issue with it. Now, my mate who has played through it has said to me, "Well, change from the default control to a different scheme," which I have helped a little. But there's still a limitation in the control. I can't remember what it is. I wish I'd stuck it on before we could. And I don't now. I will moan to my mate about it and say I can't get into it because of this, and he thinks it's the Resident Evil 4 equivalent of the static graphics of Resi 1. Right. It adds to the suspense because you can't turn quick enough, or do you see what I mean?
Yes, I'm
so
with
he will argue it's not a flaw; it's just part of what adds to the suspense for you. You've got to master it. So that's his take. Whereas my take was that I don't get on with this control system and the limitations in the controls. But anyone that's played, how many people do you hear that's played through that and gone, well, I didn't enjoy that. I wish I'd not bothered with that game.
Oh, yes,
you just don't hear it, do you? No, all the time. I hope I'm not the first. I definitely hope I'm not the first. But I do intend to sink some time into that, yeah. I want to know what all the big fuss is about.
Well, it's a game I actually own 3 copies of across 3 different systems. When I got my Wii, I was given a copy of it with the Wii. So that was good. And then the PlayStation 2 version, I got the Steelbook of, which was given to by, we mentioned already earlier, by Stu Tootie.
That's a really nice Steelbook. I really like that.
Yeah, he just happened to show one off his video. I said, "Oh, that's really nice." He said, "We can have it if you want it." So,
oh, did he?
Yeah, it was really nice of him to do that. Lovely bloke.
Yeah, he's a cracking guy, yeah.
And then I think I picked up the GameCube version in a charity shop for £2, I think it was. But it's not that expensive a game to pick up.
It's not, no.
You'd be surprised. When they sort of say Resident Evil, we expect that game to be, holding its value and what have you. But the Wii version is probably about a couple of quid. The GameCube version, maybe a £5. PlayStation 2 is probably more expensive, about £6 to £8, but it's not a completely ridiculously stupid game to pick up expensive wise. It is a cheap game, and I've not played any of them. Okay, not played any of them. But I have on good authority that possibly the Wii version is maybe the best version of all 3 of those.
They upscaled the graphics for them and stuff on the Wii.
Yeah, I think some people said the control system is really good for it and all.
There we go. That might be the answer for me as well.
There you go, and you can get yourself a Wii quite cheaply now. There you go. I know we can get loads of Wii's quite cheaply, so you're all right. So.
Who knows?
That's it. So Resident Evil 4 then is your game that you want to put some more time into.
Yep.
This now leaves us with 2 games on your list.
Yes, it does.
We're nearly there.
We are.
So one game which you absolutely hate, which we'll come to last of all. So the last game on your 6 of choice that I want to take with me and be very happy playing for the rest of my time on this desert island is...
It is Red Dead Redemption 2.
Now. Again, a series I know absolutely zip all about. But again, I say zip all about. I did play and have played Red Dead Revolver on the PlayStation 2.
Okay.
So I know a little bit about, and I think I've also... I can't see because I think I've also got it on the original Xbox as well.
Yeah, it came out for both, didn't it?
Yeah,
that's one of my. That is a game that I also have picked up in the last year or so for the PS2, just because it's a Rockstar game and seem to have a little thing for that on the PS2.
Grand Theft Auto with horses.
Yeah, that's. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, it's that style of game, isn't it?
It is.
But it's obviously set cowboys and deep south.
But I love that whole setting. I don't think there have been. I mean, when you think about it historically, there haven't been that many games set in that era.
I can't think of too many.
Style.
I can't think of too many. No.
There is a game called Gun.
Yes, never played it, but I've always been curious about that.
I think I've got a copy of that on the Xbox. I haven't got a copy on the PlayStation 2, surprisingly. I think it came out on the GameCube as well.
Yeah, I think it did. It's the yellow cover with the skull, isn't it?
That's right. The only other thing I can think that may even sort of fall into that series possibly is the Call of Juarez games as well, which is sort of set in Mexico, sort of cowboyish.
Yeah.
But there's very little like it, and this is why when it first came out, I thought, oh, what a great idea! Proper sort of old West storytelling. set in that era, cowboys, and this is just something completely different.
Yeah, I agree. Not really played a Western themed game. Are you a fan of Western films, Russ?
It depends on what they're about. I've watched The Searchers, which is an absolute classic. Watched Unforgiven.
Yeah.
I've watched Wyatt Earp, High Noon. So I've watched some of the big well-known ones. But is it a genre I sort of find myself going back to? No, you can't really class Blazing. We can class Blazing Saddles as a Western. You can, can't you? Suppose, really.
You can,
of sorts. It's not a Western. Depends on what sort of film it is and get into it. Then yeah, sometimes I'll watch them and I can't get into them.
So it's not a genre you dislike.
No, I wouldn't say dislike. No.
No, and I'm the same. I quite enjoy the genre, and I think it really lends itself to a game. And in the case of Red, I mean, I enjoyed the first one. I remember. It was one of those games that I was eagerly looking forward to coming out on the 360. Always been a Grand Theft Auto fan. I like Rockstar games. I liked Bully or Can-Am Edit, what it's called on the PS2.
Well done. That was well
done. Not bad.
I'd have just called it Bully.
Bully, yeah. So I do like my Rockstar games. I like my Grand Theft Auto, and I was looking. I'd not played Red Dead Revolver, but I was really looking forward to the first Red Dead coming out. And I went and picked it up from the supermarket, and even the supermarket assistant was like, "Oh, I heard this is really good," because it's already been out like a week.
They're paid to say that.
Well, possibly, yeah. But I think she was. I think she got hit the nail on the head. Brilliant game. Loved it to bits. Didn't really bother playing it online. It's more of a single player experience, but it's also the only game that I can remember ever playing where, so me and the same group of mates, my old same mates who were all on the Xbox as well. It's the only game I ever remember playing where people are playing their own single, their own solo campaign, but we're still getting in an Xbox party and we're still putting the headsets on and we're still discussing a game because we're all playing it. We were all looking forward to it, and it was a different experience. We'd never done that before. People would be off playing their own games. Why would you get on a headset and talk to your mate about a game he's playing unless you're in a multiplayer game together? It's the first time I can remember that happening with a game where we're doing our own thing, but we're coming together to talk about it. And the reason I mention that is just because it just felt like a bit of a landmark sort of game, and I loved it, and I milked it. And I had my own little strategy for how I was going to pace myself with the main quests and doing side quests. And it took me a long time to finish it because I didn't want it to end. I'd love to play through it again. I haven't got the Xbox One X and I've not got a 4K TV. So that's the next step. It was one of those games where I finished it and I wanted to start it again, but I put the brakes on and thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it a while so I don't burn through it and never want to play it again, because perhaps the second playthrough it's a bit soon. And I want to play it 4K as well, because I went around to a mate's house and he had a big, massive TV on his wall, which he spent a lot of money on. Like, it's the biggest TV I've ever seen.
Yeah. 75?
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah. And I knew it was in the 70s, but I wasn't quite sure. So yes, probably 75, 4K, Xbox One X, and he put Red Dead on, Red Dead 2, and it just looked unbelievable. And I thought, that is what I want it to look like when I have my second playthrough.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that takes it to a different level. It's not so much of a game. If you're playing on a screen that big, it's like whole experience from start to finish. Yeah, I
can imagine, because his TV wasn't. I like my TV to be eye level, but his TV was up just a touch higher, and it had a bit of and with the size, it had a bit of a cinema feel to it. But I thought that's what I want when I play through it again. So I'll wait a few years till I've got all the gear.
And it'll be a lot cheaper as well by then.
And knowing how things work, Russ, I'll probably play like an improved version of it on the new Xbox.
Yeah,
quite possibly that could be my second playthrough of it. So, but that had to be a game I bought, because as I was saying to you earlier about I'm playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I'm thinking it's only downhill from here. that's the feeling I had
That one,
playing
yeah.
Red Dead.
Yeah, no, it's a good choice of game. I think again, if I had the time to put into it, certainly, I've got Redemption on PlayStation 3 anyway, and I think I've got the Dutch version on the 360, which I picked up for 30 pence in a charity shop. I know it's Dutch version because the map's in Dutch as well, which is great.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Do you know what? When you said the Dutch version, I thought you meant there was a version, like a special edition,
No.
with a character.
No,
I'm thinking,
I just realised that. Yeah,
why didn't I know about this? I need that.
I thought it was German when I first got it, but then when I looked at it again, somebody confirmed to me it was definitely Dutch. And but the game's in English, so it's all right.
Yeah,
But, No, this is a game. I agree. If I had the setup like that, then I would probably be very happy playing something like this. And there aren't many, great sort of Western games like that available.
No, there aren't, and it's got the Rockstar. It's got the Rockstar flair. If you like that sort of thing, it's got all. I mean, they really go to town, don't they? They get the right voice actors in. The score is really good. It's just the attention to detail on.
And that's what it enhances that experience and playing the game. And
does, yeah.
And you said you just completely get into it. Talk about getting the games early. You just completely immerse yourself into that sort of
immersion. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're there. Yeah.
It's just one of those games that's perfect for this sort of scenario where you're stranded on an island, because it's a game to get the most out of it. I think less so than Zelda. I think you can dip in and out of Red Dead while you've got a multiplayer game on the go, or perhaps something else as well, which I probably did at the time. But it is a very immersive game, and it can command a lot of time. I mean, for me to finish the campaign, spent over a week. It was because once you go past 24 hours, it starts measuring time played in days. Mine was well over 7 days. So that 7 times 24 hours. It's a lot of time.
It is. And you sort of take out the factor of that 24 hours, 7 days. Technically you have to sleep for 8 of those hours a day, wouldn't you? So it's basically basically playing that game for sort of 2 or 3 weeks, pretty much non-stop. So
it really is. I mean, the only other game that I've come close to putting that sort of time into, and it was a game that was unlucky not to make the list, is Skyrim. I'll let you say something about yes, because I wanted to hear you say Skyrim. Yeah. I was going to do a cheeky with Skyrim actually, and put that as my underplayed, which would have been a little bit audacious because I put 150 hours into it, but I only played it one way. With I chose like a wood elf, and I did everything I could have done with this wood elf. I put him through every guild. I did every side quest. Did all the DLC. But there's more than one way to play Skyrim. I used a lot of combat, hand-to-hand combat mostly. I could have played like an archer. I could have played using magic, with different with different characters and their different strengths. It would have been a stretch to call that an underplayed game, but I was going to make a case that I could have played it all through again and played it completely differently. But that was really just because I wanted to try and wedge Skyrim into my list somewhere. But no, it didn't make the cut.
No, well, a lot of good games probably, don't make the cut in these circumstances, and the great thing about it is a lot of people tend to enjoy this sort of genre. I mean, Zelda's come up so many times on these, and Skyrim comes up quite a bit, and Skyrim, but that's it, and yeah, I can understand it. There are, you can't take every game with. That's why we ask you to pick 6, because it tries to narrow it down a little bit. Griffo did pick, Morrowind, didn't he? I think.
Yes, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
So he went for that one. Trying to remember. I think Pete Fighter, we went for Fallout 3, which is very sort of similar sort of game.
Yeah, Fallout
and the
Sims
Vegas
is another game that I tried to. Can I get this in here somewhere? But I just couldn't.
And Nath went for Morrowind as well. I'm just going through some of my notes here, but yeah, I mean, things just keep cropping up over and over again, which is fine because people enjoy that sort of thing.
It just proves that they're good games, and I think it would be. I think it would be a bit daft for me to say I want to try and give Russ like 6 different games that I wouldn't choose to take with me. I wanted to keep it true, and if it meant that we're going to retread some old ground, then
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, if people bring the same games in, that's fine. But you're all going to have your own different take on it.
Yeah.
Your idea is something going to be completely different to somebody else's, and you know that other person may pick it as a game they hate for a different reason why you love it. So that's it. Which brings us very, very nicely on to the last item on the agenda, which is the game that you're going to be lumbered with. And you don't particularly like playing it, you don't particularly enjoy it at all in the slightest. It's just going to be there to sort of really annoy you. We've had some interesting choices for this sort of game so far, and you mentioned Resident Evil. Resident Evil 6 comes quite a bit so far. So what's your choice then for the game that you dislike the most?
Yeah, my choice for the game that I dislike, but it's got to come with me anyway, is FIFA.
Now, we're talking any particular version of FIFA.
I think so. I think, I've deliberately left this open. Maybe we'll say just the latest version of FIFA, because I get every year I get talked into buying it against my better judgment.
Who talks you into buying it?
Just some of my mates that are on the box, because they all play it still, even though it's the same game year in year out with just the most minor cosmetic tweaks, and still it drops whenever it comes out during the year, and people spend 40 quid on it and the rest.
Yeah.
And then they're all playing it, and I think, okay, and they want me to get it to join in. I think, all right, this will be the year I'll get my money's worth, and we'll play loads of FIFA. So I'll spend my money on it. I'll play 2 or 3 games with them over a couple of days, and then I'll just not be able to summon the will to put it back on. And then it's the same every year. And I say to myself, right, next year I'm not buying FIFA again. But I've not managed to stop buying FIFA. I've got FIFA 20. I played 2 or 3 games over lockdown, and never went back to it.
Have you got many FIFAs at all?
I say that there are gaps. I don't buy it religiously every year. No. But with things like the console share that you can do on Xbox. Sometimes, so I've got a console link with a mate. So if he buys FIFA off the Xbox online store, I can play it. So the gaps get filled in here or there. Perhaps I'll borrow a copy of someone. So I do play it most years, and it just leaves me cold. And I'm a football fan. I watch football. I still play football. Play 5-a-side football every week prior to lockdown. Went training with a team last night. Actually, I'm sitting here and I'm in pieces this afternoon. I'm aching because I'm 37 now, and I went to training last night, and they were about 25. Just me and my mate turned up. We were the oldies. So yeah, I'm in bits today, Russ. But I love football, and I've really enjoyed watching football since it's come back on. The thing with the fans doesn't, there's no supporters in the stadium. I thought it was going to make it unwatchable, but I've got used to that really quick. During the matches, I listened. I watched the matches without the piped-in fan noise because I can't stand that.
Well, no, it doesn't add anything to it really.
To me, it takes away from it. I'd rather listen to. It's been quite interesting actually listening to some of the communication between the players and stuff that you're hearing from the touchline. And
it would be no different to what you would hear on a Sunday morning up the local leagues on a Sunday.
It can be a bit like that. But then there's also some insightful stuff you're hearing, like some tactical stuff being yelled at from the bench. So I'm kind of looking at it in a positive twist. While there's no supporters in the stands, it's not the same, but I'm getting a different look at football. So big fan of football, but I just do not get on with FIFA.
Does this apply to all football games, or is it just FIFA? Is it just you hate FIFA? Or
I think I used to play a lot of Euro '96 on the PC. Unfortunately, I missed out on Sensible Soccer. I bet I'd have been banging to that. I've got Mario Smash Football on the Cube, which I've picked up last couple of years. That's another one that's going up in price. But I like that arcadey style. I think what it is with on the PlayStation 2, I was into Pro Evo. That was better than FIFA for quite a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I still think it is, but
maybe that's what I need to do then, Russ. Maybe I need to dip back into something other than FIFA. But I thought my perception of FIFA over the last maybe 15 years was it is the best football game experience you can have. So I've stuck with it all these years. Just find it frustrating to play. I find it. Never mind the fact that the game barely changes year to year, and you're still paying top money for it. I find it very superficial now. Maybe it's just my age. I'm 37 now. And
well, I don't know. I mean, I was still probably 5-6 years ago still playing sort of Pro Evolution quite regularly. But when I first started playing football games, consoles, I mean, I prefer Kick-Off 2 to Sensible Soccer, in itself. Then we moved on to consoles, and you had FIFA came out, which sort of revolutionised how that sort of sort of football game sort of changed. And I played a lot of FIFA when it first started. FIFA International Soccer, FIFA 95, I think was probably what I put most time into.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. FIFA 98 on the N64. I think there was like a 5-a-side indoor mode, wasn't there? Or was it 2-a-side? Or it was a reduced, it was indoor football.
There was one on thing of FIFA 97, I think, had got the indoor one as well. I might be wrong, but I think it was FIFA 97.
So I'm with you there. Around that era, I was hammering FIFA, loved it, yeah.
And then I played Pro International Superstar Soccer and SNES, I think it was. I thought that was different. And then I played the PlayStation 1 version and morphed into Pro Evolution. And I stopped playing FIFA. I didn't pick a FIFA game up until 18 because it came free with the...
Oh, FIFA 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I probably stopped playing, didn't play FIFA for probably about 20 years. And then I eventually got into FIFA 18, came free with PlayStation 4. But it was all right. I still prefer playing Pro Evolution Soccer, but I haven't played either for a couple of years now. So I definitely, I would definitely go back and play Pro Evolution games and International Superstar Soccer games over FIFA games.
I think maybe, having spoken to you about it now, I think maybe I should perhaps see is it still called Pro Evolution Soccer?
PES, Pro Evolution, yeah, that's what.
Maybe I'll dip back in and see what they're like. I still want to find what is my definitive pick up and play, NBA Jam equivalent of a football game. It could be Sensible Soccer, but I've never played it. I'm looking for that. I used to play a lot of FIFA 96. I think the year. I think it was 96 on the Super Nintendo. It was very basic.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'd enjoy it quite so much now. It didn't stick. NBA Jam stuck, but no football game has ever really stuck to me as my play football game. And I'm kind of always looking at. I'm trying to find a football game that will do that for me.
Yeah, I think you have to do that, and I think the reputation at the moment certainly is the FIFA game is the better game of the beating ones at the moment. So, and everything else that seems to come along just seems to fall off the wayside and never seems to make a proper challenge.
They don't get going, do they? I remember This is Football on the PlayStation.
Oh, This is Football, Three Lions, all that rubbish. Just doesn't seem to take off.
I think my issue with the reason why I would take like the latest edition of FIFA as the game I hate is because I think when I play online with my mates, we get schooled by probably kids who spend a lot of time, learning all the buttons and all the skills and all the footwork and all the tricks. That's probably why. Oh, excuse me, I just pulled my earpiece out.
That's right.
I think that's probably why we get hammered so much, because we seem to come up against just people that are better than us. I would take it, and it's a game that potentially would try and master and try and learn a few of the skills. And my frustration with FIFA when I play it is because it's not a million miles off what you'd watching a football match, but I can't get the players to do what I want them to do quite where I want them to do it, and the AI I think is still not great. And from that sort of perspective, I find it a little bit frustrating.
Now,
it's skinned as like a football simulator. It's the license and the graphics are great, and they spend a lot of money on the soundtrack. There's a lot going on when you play FIFA. There's so many game modes. There's a lot of sizzle, but just depth of the actual game. It's not really my cup of tea.
A lot of sizzle, but no shizzle.
A lot of sizzle, but not so much steak. But that's just my perception of it. Perhaps if you do, that's why it's my choice. Because perhaps if I go away and I do spend some time with it and try and master it, then I'll have a sort of deeper appreciation for it.
Put it in, won't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So there we go. So FIFA to finish with, and that's been really FIFA to finish. Yeah, that's been absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed having this chat with you today.
Yeah, because, I have us as well.
Because being relatively new to YouTube, obviously, hopefully that people will listen to this, go across your channel, and now they know a bit more about you, they'll probably feel they know you a bit more, and they can support you through that way. Also for me as well, I mean, bear in mind that you and I have had so little interaction apart from emails back and forth. We've never spoken before.
No, we haven't. You are in fact, Russ, you are the first person from the community that I've actually had a chat with.
Well, I'm very honoured. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
It's been brilliant, and that was one of the great things about starting to put some content out a few months ago, is that I actually discovered, and bearing in mind, I have been watching for 5 years, but I'm still discovering channels, and you're, some that have been around for a long time. I've only just really come across, for instance, Retro Red Steve.
Yeah.
And I get on really well with Steve.
He's nice bloke.
He's a top bloke. We're both United fans. We got that in common, and we do talk on the Discord chat. Steve's been around a long time. How have I missed his channel?
Yeah,
I think you just do sometimes, don't you? You do miss. You can't watch everyone.
No, that's right. I mean, Steve, I think, found my channel, and I had no idea that he'd been around as long as he'd been doing stuff.
It's the same for me. So through starting the channel, through content out and talking in the Discord, I found your channel several months ago as well. Your channel's new to me, although I've been watching for a while. Your channel was a new one to me, and your channel, the channels, I enjoy the podcast because I like that discussion. I like all sorts of videos. It's wrong to say I like one type of video. I like the short ones, the long ones, the chatty ones. But yeah, I do like that. I do like the style. Especially, the panel you have on your podcast, I really enjoy it. I just like you go into a little bit more depth, I think, in your discussions. I really enjoy that. So I've been really happy to find, dozens more channels that I really enjoy.
Well, this is the great thing about it, and that's what it's there to explore, and we can only encourage that. And as you said, the way you find channels is going to be the way that other people find your channel as well, and we hope that this can give you some exposure. And
I think, I must give a thank you to Dainster. It's because it's funny. I've watched channels, like new channels starting, where they only get a few views, subs cut up really, really slowly. Dainster put me linked my channel to a WhatsApp group, and a couple of other lads that I know as well have mentioned me on Twitter, and all of a sudden I had 50 subs. And I'd not done anything to earn that. I'd literally maybe put out 1 or 2 videos. In fact, after my first video, I got quite a few subs just through people putting my channel out there for me. I felt like I'd not earned these subs. And I could just imagine for guys back in the day, they had a lot more work to do to get every one of those subs.
Be brutally honest with you, mate. I mean, it was like that probably about 2.5, 3 years ago when I first started doing it properly again.
I take my hat off to you lads who didn't get that push that I got. And I must preface that and say I'm not really bothered about big numbers of subs. I think the higher my subs go, the more nervous I am. But I do like to, but don't get me wrong, I like the guys who I watch to watch my stuff as well if they're inclined. And I was not putting content out at one point in time. I wasn't putting anything out, but I was still enjoying all this content. So, yeah, if someone else gets any enjoyment out of my videos, then good.
Well, let's hope they do so, mate. Let's hope so, because it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you about this, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as well. I hope people listening to it enjoyed
Yeah,
it, and
it's
they've
been
learned a bit
absolutely
more
brilliant.
about you. And
Yeah.
I thank you once again for giving up a huge chunk of your time to do it.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you for having me, and yeah, really enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to listening to future guests.
Yeah, well, no problem at all. Obviously, hopefully we can do something again like this in the future. And there's a couple of things that we're also got some interest in as well.
I think there's potential for a little wrestling one.
There may be one at some point. We'll have to see about that.
Yeah.
James, thank you very much. Sorry.
No, I was going to say we'll be guaranteed maybe 2 or 3 listeners for that, so I think it's well worth it.
Well, if we get more than one, that's fine.
Exactly,
that's a bonus as far as I'm concerned. So once again, James, thank you very much indeed for being on Desert Island Games with me today doing this. Just to wrap things up, so everybody, a link to James's channel will be in the description below, and also a link to the playlist of the other guests that we've had on here. I'd like to say thank you very much indeed for giving us your time during this. Hope you've enjoyed it. There'll be many more episodes to come in the near future, I do hope, when we get some more guests. If you're a YouTuber listening and you'd like to be on this format, do give me a contact in the email in the description below. Hopefully we can sort something out, because that's exactly what we've done here today. Me contacting James and seeing if he'd be interested in doing this. So if he can do it, then I'm hopefully that other people will turn around and say, you know what, I really fancy having a go at that myself. So on behalf of James, Timewarp James, and myself, the Retro Bear, I'd like to say thank you all very much for tuning in. We'll speak to you again very, very soon. Do take care.